Minority Leader in the U.S. Senate, Chuck Schumer, Senator from New York, standing by to talk to us. Senator, let me start with this. What did you hear that you liked? What did you hear that is the root of future cooperation, something you guys could pass and get out of the chamber?
Well, let me say this, Brian. The speech and reality have never been more detached in a presidential speech. It really doesn't matter what he said. This is like the campaign. And he says one thing, but as he governs, it's another. So let me give you a few examples. He talked in the speech a lot about infrastructure. We Democrats have put out an infrastructure plan over a month ago. We haven't heard a peep from him about infrastructure. He talked about he wanted to change our trade laws. Now, TPP, he said he pulled back from, but Mitch McConnell had pulled back from it before he was elected. He had an opportunity, for instance, to deal with China currency, said in the campaign over and over again that he's going to declare China a currency manipulator on day one. Hasn't done a thing. He talked about education, and there was some touching stuff on medical research. His budget that he proposed is going to slash those things. And this idea that we spent $6 billion overseas and now we have to bring the money back home is the exact opposite of the budget he proposed. And he said he was going to clean up the swamp and he was going to reform things. Well, his government is filled with, if you will, swamp creatures, bankers, Wall Street people, Washington old hands. So this speech, like his inaugural speech, it was similar to an inaugural speech. It's sort of forgotten because everything he's done has been different. The people are not looking for a speech. They're looking for real accomplishments. And the kinds of accomplishments he has are not helping the working people, but helping the people who already have great advantage. So I don't think it's going to be it's not going to serve them very well.
Senator Schumer, it's Rachel Maddow here in New York. Thanks for being with us tonight. I wanted to ask you about one of the things that has been a little bit unusual so far about the administration, and it's continuing, and it's the process of this president staffing up his cabinet. He has withdrawn his nominee for Labor Secretary. We also saw him withdraw his nominees for Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Navy. There's now news that his Deputy Secretary of Commerce may also withdraw. We've seen the National Security Advisor be fired. There's been high-level changes, high-level withdrawals, and a lot of delays of these cabinet nominees, mostly orchestrated by you and your caucus. What should we expect as he tries to fill the rest of his cabinet and staff up the rest of his administration?
Rachel, you bring up a good first point. We haven't seen many nominees for these. It's a month into his inauguration, 3 months after he was elected, and most of the major positions below cabinet, we haven't even seen nominees. And even on 2 of the cabinet positions, they haven't submitted their papers yet, the new labor fella and agriculture. And so what we're seeing here is they don't know how to govern. And when they do, they choose a hard right policy that is exactly the opposite of the speeches he gives. And that's why he's having such trouble.
Senator, we got a good bit of optimistic news coming out of the briefing for anchors today at noon. You probably got a drift of it yourself.
Yes.
Trump was going to go ahead and offer basically a chance for people who came to the country without papers, without documentation, to, if they weren't felons, they could actually stay here legally. That was a big development. It turns out he couldn't do it tonight. He couldn't say what he said he was going to say. What do you make? What do you make of
Chris,
that?
3 weeks ago he said it. And then his government, the people around him, the right-wingers said, you can't say that, and he backed off. And from what I'm told, they're already backing off what he said this afternoon. And that's the whole problem. What the president says and what the president does are almost at opposite ends. What he says, he's trying to talk to the working people of America. What he does favors the special interests and does nothing for the working people of America. In fact, goes in the opposite direction. That's why he's had a rough month, and that's why he's going to have a very rough 6 months. Even on Obamacare, what is his proposal? His proposal on ACA would cost the average person more and give them less benefits. You know, it may help the insurance companies. It fits their, quote, free market ideology. But it's the opposite of everything Trump talks about.
Senator, with respect to the former 2-term governor of Kentucky, why didn't you give the Democratic response? It's been said time and time again, the resistance is going to start in the Senate with you.
Well, I have plenty of time to address the American people. The governor of Kentucky did a fabulous job, I thought, tonight. His speech shined and I think was a much better speech than Donald Trump's. We chose him because in Kentucky, a very conservative state, ACA has been a big success. Everyone's for it. Many people have been covered. It's been done well and cut costs, as the governor said. And the governor, coming from the heartland of America, also talked about how Donald Trump is breaking his word to working people. So having other voices, I get the opportunity to speak to you folks all the time, I think made a great deal of sense.
Senator Chuck Schumer of New York, the minority leader in the U.S. Senate, thank you very much for being part of our coverage tonight.
Nice to talk to you folks. Thank you.
Senator, and keeping with our this